Ready?
All right, Scab, it's all yours.
Well, guys, welcome back to another edition of Blade Talk with Scab and Joe Samurai. I'm Scab from Fireboy
That's gonna
Cutlery.
stick.
We're glad you're here. Listen, I'm going to turn it over to Joe. Joe's going to let you know what we got going on today. But before I do that, a quick order of business. 22 veterans a day in this country take their own lives. It's the fact we can't get around. I wish we could. Both of our channels support hashtag 22 a day. Vets, two things. We love you and you're welcome here. We all of us in this community love you and welcome you. We back the blue. We support Leo. We do that by not breaking the damn law. The second order of business, real quick, is this. If you would, this is a new venture, make sure you're subscribed to both channels. Hit like, share these videos for us, guys. It would mean a lot to us. We appreciate it. And hit the notification bell. That being said, Joe, take it away.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Blade Talk. My name is Joe. I'm from Steel Forge and Fire. Thanks for that opening, Scab. Donnie, I think that Joe Samurai is going to stick, so I thank you for that very, very much. I appreciate that. So, so the topic of today is going to be blade maintenance. Now, blade maintenance can kind of hit many different avenues there. There's a couple of different things or different areas you can talk about. Also, it depends on the type of blade that you have. Now, Scab is into knives. I'm into swords. I'm also into knives. I maintain my knives, obviously. But it depends on the type of blade that you're dealing with to see what kind of, how you need to service it, how you need to maintain it. Now, I actually want to start with Scab. Scab, you have a multitude of knives, okay? Everything from, EDC carries, small knives to, big knives. I mean, I have here an Ontario, if I can get this thing open, Ontario SP10. Now, obviously, this is a heavy chopper. So now there's obviously a different way that you're going to maintain this compared to maybe a carbon. Like I believe this is carbon steel, but it's actually black coated. So it's a little, you don't have to worry about rust as much. But there are the blades that don't have the coating and you need to maintain them a little bit differently. You also need to sharpen them a little differently. So can you actually tell me how you would go about maintaining different types of knives?
Well, I think the first thing when we talk about blade maintenance and knives and choppers, and you brought up some great points. The first thing is simply this. You want to make sure everything that I do, every knife I get, anything I get in this house, I strop right out of the box. I strop it. I'm a big believer in stropping. Now, that's been part of the evolution over the past year, but I strop everything right off the rip.
Absolutely.
The other thing is this. I live in Florida. Humidity is 100% a year round, and in a lot of places in the country like that. Okay. So I'm not a huge fan of coated blades, but I have some. The other thing that's a must is, and it's not hard. None of this is hard. I want to say that up front. But what I do is if I review a knife, I take the knife out in the woods. I do anything. When I come in, I wipe the knife down and I do a light coat of mineral oil. Now, I use a couple of different things on the sharpening. I like my work sharp for my fixed blades, and I use stones on like my everyday carries, things like this, something like that to this effect. Now, what I would say to everybody is this. There are a million ways to do things. Some are better than others, no doubt. I think the point of this conversation, what I'd like to see with the point of this conversation be, is a bunch of different ways. And in the comments, let us know
Absolutely
what you do, because we want this show to be interactive as much as possible. And Joe, I would say this, I have the SP10. I sharpen, I'll start off this way. All of my choppers are sharpened to a 25 degree edge bevel. All of them. Now,
right.
You can do that to a 20. That's fine. But I sharpen everything to a 25 degree edge bevel. A lot of my pocket knives are 20. The Raja 2 is a 25. So to answer your question, I sharpen things in different ways. I use the work sharp for a lot of it, but I use stones, that kind of thing. I also use a couple of different guys that are really, really good sharpeners. And I wanted to touch on a phone conversation you and I had the other day. You were talking about the Japanese style of sharpening with
Right.
stones.
Right.
And if I told you that I was an expert, I'd be a liar. But when I worked at ETM, there's a guy there who sharpened with a Japanese stone. He did the whole thing. So when I asked him to sharpen a knife, he went through everything. And I'm trying to see if I have it right here close by. I do. This knife right here, this BK2, is a perfect example. I think he did 8 different steps, Joe, if I'm not mistaken. But this knife, and I'm gonna hold this up. This knife was sharpened 2 years ago.
And this is, you're saying, with the Japanese stones?
With the Japanese stones,
okay.
Japanese style. The whole thing. He does like the ceremony. I have not done anything to this blade other than strop it. That's it.
Right.
So my question to you is, or it's not a question, it's really just kind of a free-flowing thing. How do you sharpen your swords? Because I'm fascinated by that. And here's the other thing with that. One of the things I wanted to do in this show is simply this, man. You like swords, I like knives. We both like all blades. And if we say we didn't, well, that ain't true.
Right.
But the same way that you sharpen your swords, guys can use for machetes, big blades.
Yes.
And I'd like for you to touch on that some, because especially down here, there's a lot of my guys from ETM that still watch. They use their machetes every day. And so anything that you could do or show us or tell us, that'd be great.
Right. Well, the situation with swords is a little bit different. Because when you're dealing with katana, now, listen, this is my point of view. It is a popular point of view, but I know that different people who own katana, they have different outlook as far as how they want to maintain or sharpen their blades. Now, my personal thing is, when I receive a sword, I try to always request it to be as sharp as possible. Because the only maintenance that I want to do to a sword is just to strop it. Now, what I actually made up a video, which I'll show it on B-roll on the screen. I showed a video of how I actually use these leather straps. These are specifically from Beavercraft. I use these leather straps to actually strap my swords. Okay, so basically what I'll do is I'll hold the sword and I'll keep this right against it and I'll strap the whole length of the blade. Now, obviously, it's a lot harder to sharpen a long katana blade as opposed to having, firm grip on a knife or even a bowie. Because you have a firm grip, it's a lot easier to do it. But when you have a elongated sword, it's going to be a lot harder to really sharpen it the right way and sharpen it evenly. That's the point. So what I try to do is I try to use the workshop only as a belt grinder, any type of a belt grinder on a katana. I try to use that as a completely last resort. I resort to only stropping my katana. If the edge is damaged or there's any edge rolling, obviously you need to run it through a belt grinder to fix it. But because the problem is, a katana sword has beautiful embellishments. It's got the hamon. If you're not careful with the belt grinder, you're going to grind out all of the beautiful work, the artistry that they made in the blade. So the workshop can actually, it'll sharpen your katana, but it also might leave some scratches and edges and maybe remove a little of the hamon. Now, I know there's guys out there when they use the workshop, they're going to be taping it up with the blue tape, the painter's tape, to kind of cover it up and keep the edge there. Now, if you have the patience to do that, more power to you. I personally don't. So I actually sharpened up to be honest with you, I maybe sharpened only about 2 katanas from my workshop with the belt grinders, because the other ones I maintained it very well with the stropping system that I have. Now, obviously, listen, this is my workshop here. Okay. Now, what I like to use, okay, I'll show it to you, Scab, and then I'll show it to everybody else. What I like to use is the Ken Onion workshop, but I also have the blade grind attachment. Now, the blade grind attachment I like because I don't like using the guide that comes with the Ken Onion. Okay, I like to do it, if I'm going to use the belt grinder, I'd rather do it freehand with the blade grind attachment. Now, the beauty with that is you're able to kind of control it a little bit more and have a firmer grip on a very wide blade and be able to run it back and forth. And it's also less chance for you to scratch up or mock up the rest of the blade. So I definitely recommend work sharp with the blade grind attachment and use it freehand. You're just going to get better results overall. I notice people like Eric Hussein actually sharpens up his blade sharp with he takes the blade he uses just a Ken Onion. He just takes the attachment off and he kind of goes freehand. Now if you know what you're doing with that and you know how to angle your blade, again, it's trial and error, guys. It's however you feel comfortable doing it. But what I found out, the only time I use the workshop with my katana, unless I really need to sharpen it, I actually picked up something. Listen, whatever we're talking about, guys, I'm going to try to leave links to all of these products so you can take a look at them yourself. I picked up something from Amazon. It's from Leather. I'll show you to the camera here. It's from Leather Beltman, and it's actually a belt that goes right onto, you can see that, Skip?
Yep.
Okay, it's a leather belt that goes right onto the Ken Onion blade grind attachment. So what you're doing is you're stropping your katana with this leather belt. I mean, you keep it at a lower speed. I mean, let me tell you guys, your blades come crazy ass sharp. And I'm not just talking about katana. You can sharp your bowies, your pocket knives. I mean, it's a quicker alternative than using just the actual blocks with the leather. So that's actually, I really recommend that for katana. Completely recommend that from katana, and I can recommend that for any bowies or machetes or anything that you want to just maintain that sharpness. But other than that, listen, workshop guys, this thing is a godsend. I mean, you go through all the belts and you figure out basically how you're going to be sharpening this thing. I mean, right out of the box, you know, it comes with a 120 grit. Then it comes with a 1,000, a 3,000, and 6,000 for extra fine. I mean, you have pretty much all the belts out of the box that you can go through to reprofile the edge, to put it on the angle that you want. Now, what I do, just to answer your question, Scab, you had said that you use for the big choppers. Okay, you try to do a 25-degree angle, which is smart, because obviously if you're banging the shit out of this thing, you don't want to have a very fine edge because you're going to ruin the whole edge on the knife. Okay, because it depends on the use and what you're going to be using it for. My katana, the one katana I sharpened, I actually went with an angle of like 17 degrees.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get a fine sharpening edge. Yeah. Because obviously, what's the use of a katana? You're not hitting or slamming it into like really hard objects where you have to worry about damage. You want the best slicing power. So it all goes into play with what is your tool, what are you looking to use or maintain or sharpen. So that's when you have to decide what angle you're going to approach and what device you're going to be using. But to answer your question, how do I maintain the sharpness level of my katana? Strictly stropping, unless there is an issue with the blade where it really needs to be reprofiled or resharpened because it's just not cutting or it's dull or anything like that. But that I really only use as a last resort.
That makes sense. And you hit two things right there that I do want to touch upon. And you know, without trying to go all over the place, but two things. One is you mentioned you always request extra sharp.
Yes.
That's new to me. I mean, I knew that you could say, hey, will you? I know with a lot of OEMs with knives, you get what you get.
Right.
Okay. But Kukri House, and then with ex-Gurkha Kukri House, I'm sure you could probably do the same thing. And the katana, and that's fascinating to me. I would say that would save a ton. The other thing you mentioned, and I know we're going to bring somebody in a minute to talk more about it, but this really kind of stuck out to me when you talk about the hamon and making sure you didn't ruin the hamon.
Right.
That, I mean, we're going to have a lot of different groups watching these videos, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of different opinions, and that's the point.
Right.
That's the point. But if you get some guys like myself, and I've told you this a million times, I have one nice katana that I got from Carl Ruger, and right now, let me just stop and say this. Carl, man, we love you. You're still in our thoughts, still in our prayers. Hang in there, buddy. You got a whole community behind you. But the one real katana I have, it's 1095. It's beautiful. And I'm like, it's sharp. It's super, super sharp. But I'm going to be honest with you. Before I sharpen it, I would send it to either you or Eric Hussein because I don't want to mess anything up on it.
Right.
So that's a very, very, very valid point.
It's
And
there's a yeah, definitely. There's a very artistic element when you're dealing with katana blades compared to dealing with knife blades. Okay, because the hamon and just especially if you're dealing with like folded blades.
right.
Okay, folded blades have these beautiful wood grain patterns, and you just kind of you don't want to mock up all the work that was put into these blades.
No, absolutely
Okay,
not.
so you have to be very careful when you're using the belt grinder to make sure that either you're going to tape up the whole blade. Now, Agura Steve is actually really good at doing that. He's actually had some videos out where he just covers the whole damn blade in blue tape, and he actually has. I don't know how he has patience to do it. I personally don't. I mean, honestly, I sharpened up one of my. This is a Hanwei Raptor. Okay, it's a Unikubi Zakuri blade. Okay, so I kind of sharpen this thing up because Hanwei usually they give you it's either a hit or miss with the Hanwei. It's either really sharp or it's kind of like sort of sharp. So this particular sword, I mean, it came sharp out of the box, but it wasn't as sharp as I wanted it to be. Now I was more comfortable sharpening this blade because this particular blade is a through hardened blade, so it doesn't have any hamon line. Okay, it doesn't have any temple line because it's through hardened. Okay, so I was a little more comfortable sharpening this thing up. Now I don't know if you can see it in the camera. Let me try to get this focus. Yeah, you should be able to see it now. There's no apparent scratches. I mean, I kind of just did it the right way freehand, and now it's it's cutting like a charm. I mean, it's I improved the blade. It's cutting really well. I actually have some cutting sessions with this particular sword. That's one of the few swords that I actually decided I needed to sharpen. But for the most part, I really try to avoid bringing the my katana to a belt grinder. And listen, you guys may be thinking it totally different. I don't know. This is personally me. I like to just to keep the beautiful aesthetic of the blade as much as possible without having to ruin it running it through a belt grinder. So that's why I really try. When you say as far as requesting it to be sharp, I do a lot of my katana orders through custom forges. So they custom made to my likings and my specifications. That's why I prefer to buy my swords. Okay, I have two other swords coming in from Skyjiro and Huawei, and they're custom forges, and I'm able to request how sharp I want the blades to be. And given that I have a sharp blade to begin with, as long as I maintain it with the strop, I don't find any need to have to go in and use a belt grinder unless there's a damage on the blade. So that's actually really important to me personally in terms of maintaining the sharpness of my katana.
Now, let me ask you this. Having said that and having covered the sharpening just a little bit, you've done several cutting videos and they're good. And hats off to you. You've gotten better with each video. Now, I know that Eric Hussein and Eric 117 and Carl Ruger, everybody that does cutting wipes their blade and continues on. Tell me a little bit, when you're done with your cutting session, what's your process for maintaining? And because what we're talking about here is blade maintenance.
Of course.
And we'll do different shows down the road on specific techniques, but just talk a little bit about how, before you put your blade up, what you do.
Well, we kind of just bypassed the maintenance part of it and got right into sharpening because a lot of people want to know about sharpening.
Sure.
The maintenance... speaking for myself in terms of my katana and then my knives, but I guess I'll let you take the knives. In terms of my katana, there is general maintenance and there's immediate maintenance that's needed, okay? What do I mean by general maintenance? A katana blade is a high carbon steel, okay? Now, you guys all know a high carbon steel blade can rust with moisture, okay? So you need to maintain that blade. So now, if I have a particular katana that's in its scabbard and in its saya and it's not being used, that blade you know for sure it's going to be completely oiled up. Now I use koji oil, I use mineral oil as well. Mineral oil works really well. Whatever, even cooking oil, it doesn't really matter. Any type of oil is going to protect the blade from rust. Now, you brought up a really good point. It also depends on where you live and the humidity in your region, okay? I don't have to worry about humidity in New York maybe 2 months out of the year, 3 months out of the year at the most, where we really have high, like freaking today, I'm dying. But like you have these high humidity days where you have to worry about storing where you store your katana, and if it's going to have the humidity is going to be too high in where it's stored, you need to maintain it a little bit longer. So what I do is if I just get a sword and I store it every 2 to 3 weeks, even if I don't use it, every 2 to 3 weeks, I would take it out, wipe off all of the old oil with maybe alcohol or whatever type of safe solvent that's not going to ruin the blade. Wipe off the old oil and re-oil the blade and then store it again. That is regular maintenance on katana. That's extremely important, okay? Something important as well. When I'm doing sword reviews on a katana, there's no oil on it because you don't want to see the oily residue. It's completely bare. If I happen to touch the katana with my fingertips and I store it without cleaning it, overnight I may get rust on the blade. You know, it's the truth.
Yeah.
So you have to. It's very. You should never. You should try to avoid your touching the blade at all. And if you know you will be, you need to clean it. So there's after the reviews, but there's the general maintenance is every 2 to 3 weeks. And if you have a high humidity period, I would say every week you should definitely wipe off the old oil and put new oil on it, even if you're not using it. So that's general maintenance. Immediate maintenance is after you cut with the sword. Okay. Now, whether you're cutting, if you're cutting tatami mats, a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I'm just cutting tatami mats. I don't even have to wipe it down." But understand, tatami mats are soaked in water, so there's water that's gonna go onto the blade. It's not only when you're cutting water jugs or anything like that where you're getting the blade soaked. It's also when you're cutting tatami. Any type of a cutting session, even if you're cutting pool noodles, you need to wipe down the blade because the glue in the pool noodles can leave also a residue on a piece of your blade where it went through and cut. So that's very important. So you should wipe down with alcohol your blade and then oil it up again and then store it. Okay? But it can go on and on because obviously when I do a cutting session, I physically take the sword apart. You know, I take the Makugi pegs out. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let me show you something. All right. I'll show it to you here. I'm going to see if I can have both cameras see at the same time. In here, you have two Makugi pegs. Okay, there's wooden pegs that hold this in place. Once you pop those out, the whole handle comes off. Okay, everything, this entire blade can go to the bare blade in the tang. You take everything apart. Now, I do that because when you're cutting water bottles and stuff, water can leak down into the tang. If that water sits on the tang, it will rust the tang of the blade. Now, that's not as much as a concern. You know, sometimes a little rust on the tang is normal, but you definitely want to take it apart and clean it after you have a very long cutting session. So that's something that's part of the maintenance after you're cutting with a sword. If you're cutting water bottles, you want to take it apart. Tatami, not as much, but if you're soaking these things in water by cutting all these water jugs, you definitely want to take it apart every once in a while, wipe it down, and just to make sure there's no water trapped in between the pieces of the sword. So that's immediate maintenance, and then there's regular maintenance. So it's a job. It's a responsibility, keeping these katana. If you just, put it on your display shelf and never touch it, even if you don't cut with it, guys, if it's a high carbon steel blade, even if you don't cut with it and you just leave it on a shelf just to display because you love katana, which I do, and I can appreciate that, you still need to on the norm, probably every month, I would say. I'm probably going to the extreme, but probably every month or less, I would take it out, wipe it down, put new oil on it, so you know at least it's going to last you. Now, if you follow this type of maintenance schedule, your katana, and you strop it, and you make sure there's no edge damage, these katana will last you forever. I mean, they really will. If you neglect it, and you don't take care of it, and you forget about it, they're not going to last very long. So it's a lot of maintenance that goes into katana. It really is.
Well, let me touch on this, and then let's get our guest in here.
Yes.
Because I think right now where we're at, it'd be a good point for him. But let me just say this: I don't give a damn what you got. Okay, in Green Cove Springs, in Jacksonville, Florida. When I say this, I'm not kidding. We have over 70 to 80% humidity 12 months out of the year. I don't care if it's a sword. I don't care what it is. And again, Collins and Basis said this the other day, and he's true. This isn't hard, guys. None of this is hard. But I wanted to cover this because I know myself want to learn more about the katana and swords.
Right.
And there's a lot of younger guys that watch this and who are the next generation. So we want to make sure, I want to make sure, Joe wants to make sure that we give them at least a good base. And I'll say this, it doesn't matter if it's katana, it doesn't matter what it is, you've got to maintain the blade. Joe, why don't we go ahead and get our guy in here? And I think everybody will be excited to hear from him. So let's do that, and then we'll move forward.
All right, guys. So honestly, we can't. We're talking about maintenance, but we also touched a lot on sharpening. Okay, so there's really no way that we can make the show without actually talking to Eric Hussein about sharpening. All right, what do you call him, Scab? It's your
The
point
Sultan of
phrase.
Slash.
Salted of Slash. There you go. I mean, he is. I mean, he's an amazing cutter. First of all, he's going to come on a show with Eric 117. That's later. But I felt like he really needed to be here to be talking about sharpening because I mean, he could teach. He's going to teach me, 10 things right now. I'm sure. And so I want him let him know where we're at and let him kind of continue from there. So Eric, thank you for being here, buddy. I appreciate your time, man.
Right, anytime, guys.
So what we did was we touched upon knives, but I kind of took the show a little bit. Sorry, Scab, because I started just BSing about swords. Okay, because when we're talking about maintenance and maintaining something, maintaining a blade, I felt like katana's there's so much more involved in maintaining your katana. So can you tell me your general maintenance? I'm talking about general maintenance. What I mean by general maintenance is swords that you don't cut with all the time, your general maintenance, and then your immediate maintenance after you do a cutting session with it, especially if you're getting them wet, water bottles and things like that. Can you tell me your methods as far as how you go about doing that?
All right. Well, it's pretty much the same. Like the ones I don't use, I'll do the same thing every 4 months or so. But I use they're called polishing cloths from Smoky Mountain Knife Works. I soak one of those in 91% rubbing alcohol, clean the blade off, let it dry for a second, and then those glasses cleaning kits, they come with the little polishing cloth.
Yes, that's what I use too.
Cloths, I'll use that to make sure that all the alcohol is off the blade and stuff. And then I actually have the felt cloth that came in the cleaning kit of my very first garbage Musashi Domestic Dynasty katana that I the crap out of cutting up maple trees. But I have that little rag and I have it soaked in the Camiella oil that used to be available at Chris Cutlery and Pop's Gun oil, and I'll re-spritz that, put a few drops on it from time to time, keep it in a little Tupperware container.
Right.
And it's ready to go once the blade's clean. Put a coat of oil on it, and she's ready to go for the next time.
Right. And if you're not cutting with it, you're saying you wait about 3 months. Let's just say 3 months pass and you haven't, if you're not cutting with the sword, how often? You're saying every 3 months you actually go back and re-oil it? Okay.
Yeah.
Because we were also talking about humidity. Okay. Now we're both in New York.
Right.
And we don't have to worry about humidity as much as Scab, who's in Florida or in California, whoever has high humid climates and stuff like that. So I would say, me personally, as soon as June hits up until September, I'm probably, if I'm not cutting with the swords, I'm maintaining them probably every 3 weeks. I'm kind of rubbing them down, but the winter months I don't worry as much, so that's probably important. No?
Yeah, I keep all mine in my bedroom. It's got the AC and stuff, but I mean, I got a few swords that I haven't touched in a couple years even, and there's not a spot of rust on them. So
that's good.
Whatever I'm doing, I must be doing it right. But I mean, yeah, like you said, it's not really a huge issue here. I can only imagine what Scab and backyard got to deal with down in Florida, man. That's got to be a nightmare.
Exactly. That's going to be a bigger issue. Now, I want you to go into sharpening. Okay. Now, how often do you sharpen your katana, or is there a reason where you would sharpen a katana through a belt grinder using your work sharp? Or do you try? See, my point was I try to avoid. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I try to avoid using any type of a belt grinder on a katana unless I really absolutely have to,
Yeah.
and I choose to go with stropping instead.
Yep,
What
I'm
are
the
your
same way. Same way. Like, I mean, my favorite katana are like the HSTS and stuff. I mean,
right?
those I would do more harm if I put them on the belt. But yeah, when at all possible, I like usually just a strop will bring it out as long as the manufacturer has a good edge on it. All it really needs is a strop. But like for
Right.
example, I did that comparison video with the Hanways the other day, and just this morning I had to touch up the Practical Elite, and I mean now it's a night and day difference on how good she cuts. But
Right.
yeah, I mean like if at all possible, I'd rather not, but
Right.
sometimes you have to, you know.
Right. But your outlook now when we're dealing with your knives is completely different, right?
Right,
In
yeah. With
terms of
the
using a
knife,
belt
what I
grinder.
usually do, I'll get it, and if it's a good factory edge to start, I'll run a straw, I'll run it on the strop, but then I'll usually try and roll with that for at least a couple weeks, sometimes a month or more, and
Right.
let it dull out naturally, and then go and reprofile and resharpen after that period of time has elapsed, just to kind of give the
With the
factory
higher
edge a shot.
with the higher grit belts, you're
Yeah,
saying, not the strap, the high grit
right,
belts.
yeah.
Okay. Right, right. So, so basically, it's. I think it's my point that I was making as well. Try not to use the any abrasive belts on the edge unless it's absolutely necessary.
Exactly.
Now, when you're saying you're running through a strop, what do you use? Do you have any type of a stropping belt on on an electric grinder?
I had the belt for the work sharp, but I don't know. I can't. It doesn't seem to give me the same results. I've been using strictly it's the $12.99 marble strop paddle that you can get from pretty
The
much
paddle.
any knife retailer. Got it loaded up with Rouge compound. Yeah, very similar to those. Yep, loaded with the
Right,
red compound, and I just do them all by hand. If it's a knife, I'll put the strap up on my knee and do it. And if it's a sword,
right.
I'll actually put the blade of the sword over my knee and hit each side and whatnot.
Right. You actually you would take the sword and actually just use it
Yeah, yeah,
basically onto
just
the
like
sword.
that. Yep,
Kind of like how I made up that video,
yep,
a while back with the swapping and stuff.
yep.
I totally agree with you. And is this your method as far as keeping your stuff razor sharp? Because honestly, listen, you're a great cutter without a doubt. And I mean, a sharp sword is definitely important. You
Right.
also have to have the edge alignment. You have to be a great cutter. You have to know what you're doing to get to the targets the way you do.
Right.
But is this your secret as far as maintaining your blades to be able to give you the results you need to cut the way you cut?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm a compulsive stropper. I mean, like
Yes.
before I go out, I'll usually run it a couple times, and then when I come back in, I'll run it on the strop again, and then clean
Right.
it. And like pretty much every time, every day I get home from work, I pull every knife out of my pocket, run them on the strop, and yeah,
Right.
I live by that thing, man. It totally changed my life. Like makes a night and day difference.
Right. So it's consistency, consistency, consistency
Yeah.
in maintaining and short. So part of the maintenance of your all of your blades is consistency in keeping the edge sharp.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay. So there you have it, guys. There is Eric Hussein's secret. Okay, live here on Play Talk. Okay, as far as how he keeps his stuff just completely hair popping, insanely sharp. I mean, it's a matter of just you have to work on it and you have to be consistent. And that really, honestly, Scab, that goes into the maintenance. I mean, as far as your responsibility in maintaining your blades, I mean, that's what it comes into.
I mean, it's
Absolutely, absolutely. There's nobody, and I say this honestly, that I'm more impressed with than Eric as far as cutting. I wanted to ask one question before we move forward.
Don't like
Your,
Eric 117 hear that, but go ahead.
your the primal, is it the primal roots from Condor?
tribal roots.
Tribal roots, the tribal roots.
Yeah.
When you do, and I do the same thing with the stropping, and I got that. I'll be honest, I got it from you. I've gotten almost a little collection of strops now. I do them every day for my everyday stuff.
Right.
The tribal roots. What edge degree bevel is that? And I love that knife. I love when you cut with it. Do you take more care with that? And when I say more care, what I'm saying is, do you have favorites? Is that a favorite of yours? Talk a little bit about that knife before we move on, please.
No, yeah, I mean that's definitely one of my favorite shorter style blades, man. And just the way that it slices through noodles and bottles, man. I mean, I use that as a companion to a katana more than I use a tanto and whatnot. And as far as like the edge angle, I couldn't tell you to be exact because I ripped the angle guides off of my work sharp and I just do it by eye. And
Right.
just
That's what I had said. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but
and
that's impressive. That's
Yeah, it is.
to
It
do
is. You
that.
have to know what you're doing.
Yeah, and
yeah,
if you don't, you'll screw it up. So that, man,
Mm-hmm.
that's impressive.
oh, I've
Yeah.
definitely screwed up quite a few. Like it took me, I'd say, a solid year and a half, 2 years of going through garbage thrift store kitchen knives, learning before like I'll finally touch a katana that I actually care about and whatnot.
Right.
Just takes
Right.
practice.
Dude, that's that right there. Let's hold up right there. Right there. Let's hold up. And thank you, Eric, for saying that, because that's as much of a valid point. We've talked a lot about the work sharp. Now, we've talked more about swords this time, and this is a subject that I think Joe and I agree we can go into a couple on. So staying right there though on swords, guys, with the work sharp, thank you for mentioning that again, because you can screw. I personally have messed up some knives. Not that it's people say, oh, it's easy. Well, it's easy to mess one up.
Oh
So
yeah,
thank you for hitting on that topic. You've got to practice, or you can do whatever you want, but it's much smarter to practice with that work sharp on some garbage knives and then touch your good stuff. That is one disclaimer I want to make.
for sure. And if you really don't trust yourself, you can always get some of that blue painter's tape and put that all the way up on the blade up to the edge, just so you
All
don't
right.
stuff it and get that ugly line. I know you know what I'm talking about going up the blade.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And people will call you out on that every damn time.
Oh,
Right. 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 Well, listen, once you get good at it, like Eric, you don't have to go crazy with the blue tape. Once you
right.
know how to hold it and you know how to just keep the edge only on the belt, it'll come in natural. But like you said, great point, Eric. I mean, you have to practice, guys. You can't just take like you have all these videos, everybody using the workshop and then taking a look at the edge I'm getting. You have to practice yourself. You have to hold the blade in your hand. You have to practice yourself, and really do start with cheaper knives that you don't have to worry about messing up until you get to a point where you're comfortable. Because me personally, I'm not going to take one of my very expensive katana and throw it on the workshop if I'm not 100% positive that I'm not going to mess up the hamon or the beautiful details of the blade. And that's extremely important. And, any knife too. I mean, listen, the finish on a knife is gorgeous, and you don't want to, mess up the finish on a knife as well. I mean, so you have to practice, guys, and you have to get good at it before you can be comfortable with it. But once you're there, guys, oh shit. I mean, it's just, that thing is a godsend. It really is.
Man, the workshop's changed my life, man. Totally. Like I used to have to send my stuff out and pay for it
Right.
to get sharpened, and I mean that was a life changer.
Absolutely.
Totally
Absolutely.
agree. Man, listen, Eric, thank you so much. One, I think this is the first time you and I've talked like face to face or on the phone.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. And I'm so looking forward to having you and Eric 117 on. That's going to be an awesome thing, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Anytime.
Eric, thank you for being here, buddy. I really appreciate it. And like I said, you did teach me a couple of things, so I appreciate that.
Good to know.
All right.
The lineage going, because I learned everything from other guys on YouTube too. So
Right.
the circle of life continues.
There you go. Thanks for being on, buddy. And we're gonna see you on the next show coming up when we organize that. Thank you for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day, bud.
Good deal. You too, guys.
Thanks, Eric.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
man.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that was Eric Hussein. And we want to thank Eric again for being in. That dude, he's an awesome guy, man.
Thanks,
One
Eric.
of the things we're going to do is have a lot of the brothers in the blade on. I think it's important to do that. Now, we've gone quite a while, haven't we? So what I want to do now, here's where we're at in the show. I'm going to turn it over to Joe, and Joe wants to go over some feedback we had from the last show. And I want to thank y'all for the many, many comments we got. And I want to encourage you to again comment. Now, obviously, this is a massive topic. We're going to continue it on in another show. So we didn't skip old Scab. We didn't do all this is by design. We're going to hit more on knives next time. But I want to say to you, Joe, thank you. I learned a lot today, and this is a journey. So having said that, recap some of the stuff from last time for us.
Well, I want to thank everyone because honestly, pilot or trial run, however you want to call it, that first show that we did with the bad camera angles and the turkeys in the room and all that stuff going on. So I appreciate you guys kind of sitting through that. And even though the show technically probably didn't work out the way we wanted it to, I mean, listen, it was a trial, it was a test run. We had some really great commentary, and I'm really happy how that turned out. And I think you guys were too, because we got like many comments as far as people kind of contributing. The topic was everyday carries and certain state limitations as far as size of the blades and things and different things that you can carry by state law. So a couple people were really nice enough, and I thank you guys for leaving some comments. So I'm going to read them off to you. We'll discuss it a little bit, but I just wanted to read it off so this way you know exactly what's going on. First one here is from Isaac the Noob. What's up, Isaac? He had said that there's no size restrictions in Virginia, but automatics are no-no. So no size restrictions in Virginia. That's pretty damn good. Automatics are no-no. I could understand that. Donovan in Mississippi. You can carry any knife as long as you are over 18 and not a felon. That's very interesting. That's amazing. I mean, I think I'm moving to Mississippi. Rusty Knife Lover, what did he say? Pocket knives are no limit in length, but municipalities like Los Angeles limit to 3 inches. So there are some restrictions there, but not as bad as New York. Yoto, thanks Yoto. In Nevada, pretty much everything except for throwing stars are legal to carry on a state level, even fixed blades, switchables, etc. But the length limit to conceal carry without a knife or machete conceal carry permit is less than 3 inches. Okay, that's a statement that he made. Now, a couple other people, but we don't want to make this video too long, and I appreciate everyone leaving comments. Something important that actually Rusty Knife Lover, Rusty, thank you very much. He actually said to go into like legal blade. It's actually called kniferights.org. Again, guys, I'll try to leave into the description everything we're speaking about. It's kniferights.org. It's actually a resource that you can punch in your state code, your state zip code, and it'll tell you the latest write-up of what's allowed to be able to be carried in your particular state. I think it's a great resource. I actually went in to look at a couple things in New York, and they actually just released, Cuomo just actually said that gravity knives are allowed to be carried now, but it's still under a 4-inch rule for the length of the blade. So you'll learn a lot actually from going to this site if you're curious to know what the latest laws are within your state with the everyday carriers. So guys, thank you. Thanks for contributing. We really do appreciate it. I'm glad that everybody kind of joined into the conversation because that's really our point, Scab. I mean, that's why we're doing it. We want everybody to join in and converse about it, no?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. And the only way this can be successful is if you guys comment and are interactive. Now, again, on the legalities, we're going to have Captain Electro on here pretty soon, and that's something he wants to touch on. Looking forward to that. So if you have questions on 4CAP, or if you have questions for us to do our due diligence, because we need to do some of that as well, we'll do that. But yeah, I like where we're going with it. Joe touched on it the last time, guys. I've said this a million times to different people. If you knew how random that last trial run was, you'd be amazed.
Yeah.
So we're still in the beginning stages, but we can't do anything unless you guys support us. So thank you for the comments. I'm really, really, really looking forward to comments on this one. And please, man, let them fly. We're all about it.
Yeah. Guys, thank you. Like Scab said, I think probably the next immediate show, I think coming up, we're going to be shooting it next week sometime, is with Captain Electro. And guys, you have to stick around for that. Many of you who are watching this probably know Captain Electro's YouTube channel. He is probably one of the most interesting men you'll ever meet. I mean, he's creative, he's knowledgeable, he's going to be a great let's put it this way. In a nutshell, he's going to be an amazing guest to have on the show, and we're really looking forward to having you on, Cap. And that's going to be probably our next show coming up. And if there's going to be any specific discussions in that show, we'll try our best on Discord or on other videos to let you know what might be coming up as far as agenda for the most part. But I think we're going to probably follow up on EDCs and probably these last two shows, and we'll probably follow up with a couple of different items there as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we appreciate you riding with us. We really, really do. Well, partner, I think I've said about all I can say. How about you?
That's all I could say, guys. Thank you for being here. And again, all blade friends are welcome. Knife friends, sword friends, machete friends, whatever you like is what we're going to try to touch. Okay, so all blade friends are welcome. I thank you for being here, guys. Have an incredible night, day, evening, wherever you're watching this. Enjoy and have a great one. Thanks, Scab. Thanks for being here, Scab. Appreciate it.
Enjoyed it, my friend. Good night.
Have a good one, guys. Good night. Thank you.